So that was the last time we talked. Was the last time we lived in Germany over 12 years ago, and what I remembered
Yeah.
about you, and we've kind of kept in touch a little bit via social media. And I wanted to tell you one thing, one significant thing that I remember about you after we moved. I don't know if you remember this or not, but after we moved from Germany, we moved to Washington State. And I think it was in Washington State that we were having problems in our marriage. It
Hmm.
wasn't like a lot of problems, but I just remember something pretty significant happened. I don't even remember what it was. All I remember is at that time I really thought about calling it quits. And I remember posting something on Facebook about that. And I don't, I mean, thinking now, like, I would not write anything like that now, but back then, this is like at least 10 years ago, I wrote something on Facebook and I was just frustrated and I was thinking, like, this is like, I'm not gonna, like, this is too much. I think I wanna call it quits. And you said, do you remember this? I don't know. You
I
probably,
do.
oh,
No, I
you
do
do?
remember it. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
I think your question was something like, "Give me one reason to stay married." Something like that. It was generic, but it was like right to the heart of things, and I was like, "Oh, yeah." I remember that.
wow. Yeah, wow. Well, what I remember was a lot of people commented, but your comment in particular, I don't know if you posted it publicly or if you private messaged me more, but you said keep trying because you don't want to later look back and wonder if you did all that you can do or something kind of like that, like you don't want to have this regret of maybe, what if, these what ifs, I guess, as the kids grow older, just like in your mind. Something like that. I remember whatever you said was very, I mean, and plus also I knew your a little bit of your background, and so like you really meant what you said, and like it was like from wisdom, from lived experience. You want to think about
Yeah.
this, and so I really took to heart what you shared with me at that time.
Yeah, I think I said something along the lines of, "I'm no expert on marriage, but I can tell you what it's like to be divorced and to be a single parent, and it's not the road you want to take unless you've really exhausted all your options." It was something along those lines. Because I remember thinking, like, I'm not the person to give marriage advice, but I know what it's like to be a single parent, and you don't want to wish you'd tried one more time. Like, you want to make sure before you make that decision to go down the divorce route. So it was something along those lines. And then, yeah, it makes me very happy that you're still, I hope, happily married.
Yes, yes, we are.
Yeah.
Yes, I think in May. I think in May. In May, it should be 14 years of marriage. So yes, we are happy, and it's a healthy relationship. Yeah. Thank you for saying what you said. Wow, you just like it just ran off your. Maybe it's because you teach language arts. It just came out so clear. Like I need to type that up. I'm gonna type that response and add it to my blog. Like wow, many people need to hear that. And yeah, thank you for sharing that. That says a lot about you, also. And so that's why I wanted to talk to you now, and we're talking on video. Thank you for meeting with me, and because I like that you're willing to share from the heart. Real information that needs to be heard. And what I hope that we would talk about today was the fact that we know that you're a teacher of all ages, middle, high. I also made another post recently, well, this year, about something
Yeah.
else. I was talking about, I don't even remember what I was talking about, but it had something to do with my kids. They're in a new phase of life. When you met them, they were like 4 and 5 years old. Now they're 13 and 14 in the eighth and ninth grade. Um, and they have changed. And so I've been thinking about and listening to some podcasts and things. Um, talking about how to adjust. And you have children. One is about to graduate high school.
Yeah, she's 17 and she's a senior, and the other one is a sophomore and she's 15, almost 16. So I'm getting very near the end of the high school experience.
Yeah.
But it's been really cool because, this is my 21st year of teaching, but in the last several years, really interesting to teach at the same school that my kids go to. And so I see what I see as a teacher, but then I also hear what they see as students. And as a parent, I hear my kids talk about school, but then as a parent who works in that building, I can see the teachers that they, are struggling in their class, or the other students, or the school policy, or the administration, or the, all the things, because school is like their whole day when they're teenagers. It just consumes everything about them. And to hear them complain about, dress code or whatever it is, and also having sat through the staff meeting where that was addressed, that sort of thing. It's interesting to see both sides, and so it's been eye-opening for me as a parent and as a teacher, on both sides of that, to be able to see the parallels at the same time, and see where things overlap and where things are perceived very differently. And they'll have, a situation with a friend who's also one of my students, and so it's just, see different sides of an issue. It's like, what have you tried talking to that person? Have you asked, what have you done? I try not to blur those lines, but I can't cut myself in half. And so I just have to ask a lot of questions, and it's been a good practice for me as a parent to just ask lots of questions, because I can't always, share all the information that I know about the situation, but I can ask some guiding questions. And that then leads into seeing how your children process information and how they make decisions. And, I can't just tell them this is what they should do. Sometimes I do as a parent, but a lot of times I try and just say, well, maybe you could try this approach and see how that works. So yeah, I certainly don't have all the answers, but I'm in a very unique situation where I can see one, situation or example from multiple perspectives, and then kind of see what works and what didn't work, and maybe that will be helpful to other parents.
Yeah, you said a couple of things there. Well, you said a lot of things, but one thing I noted was you said you ask a lot of questions, because information from both sides. Let's say in a friendship relationship, that there's some kind of confusion there or miscommunication. So you hear both sides kind of, but you don't involve yourself. So you limit yourself by not involving yourself so much that you're like, hey, well, kind of jumping in to help mend the situation. You don't.
And it's hard when, as a parent, you're like, well, I know what the answer is. And if they would just do this thing, it would all be fine. But I can't do that because I'm at work, and I do have my children with me at work, which is very awkward. But I'm in that professional role, and so I have to wait until I ride home. So I do very much limit how much I can jump in and save them, and I think that's also been challenging at times. But a really good thing for parents is you want kids to learn how to handle their problems, and it's really hard because we're used to saving the day when they drop their ice cream cone when they're 4. We buy them another one and we fix it. But as they become teenagers, they really do have to learn how to fix it themselves. And so I try not to, talk to my colleagues until after they have tried talking to them. If they miss something, or if they have to retake a test, or if they were absent or whatever, my kids never get to be absent. It's the problem when your mom's a teacher. You never get to be absent. But if a situation happens, I try and encourage them to handle it. And way before I ever would make like a formal meeting with that colleague of mine, and I would say, I need to talk to you as a parent. So there's a lot of kind of steps to go through before we get to that. So they have had to fix most of their problems, to the point where some of their friends have said, no, my mom would be at the school in a minute if that had happened to me. But my kids know that I can't do that. I can't just run into the classroom next door and be like, hey, my child, So they know that I believe that they can fix it, they know that I can give them suggestions, and that I'm going to give them opportunities, and even one opportunity, they know I'm not going to save them after that. They have to work it out, and they can try different things. They can try, approaching with extra kindness. They can try to talk to them, whether it's a student, a classmate, a teacher. But they know that I'm not going to save them until it's like really a huge situation. But otherwise, I'm just not helping them. I won't help them. But I encourage them, and I'll always listen, and I'll always guide them. So that's probably the best thing that parents can do, because when parents save their kids, or the parents are the one emailing about missing work, that sort of thing, and the student's not involved in the conversation, then that's not very helpful. So if the students give the parents the runaround, then yes, I love when those parents contact me. My child says everything's turned in, and yet I see all these missings. What's going on? But if it's, my student's going to be absent today, what are they going to miss? That email should come from the student, that kind of thing. So you want to model good behavior for your kids, and you want to encourage them, and you want to guide them, but really, you have to make them do it. They have to contact their teachers. They have to work through their problems. They need to talk to their friends. Even if it's a bullying or harassment situation, they need to go to the principal or the assistant principal. Like, the kids have to have that ownership of the situation. So that's really helpful if parents can guide their kids in that and encourage them and say, I'm right behind you, but you got to go first, and let the student or the teenager start that conversation with their teacher or their principal or whatever the situation is. That's
Wow.
my advice.
Say that again?
That's my advice on that situation. Yeah, really encouraging kids to find their own voice and stand up for themselves and to address problems.
Yeah, you said have them lead the way, but the parent is definitely behind them, supporting them, encouraging them, believing that they can handle their problem. But if not, we're right there, listening, asking questions, watching, being involved when that doesn't work, I guess.
Yeah. Even things like role playing or giving, kind of examples of what they could say or how to start that conversation. Can I schedule a meeting to talk about such and such? So the parent can be really involved, but the student has to kind of be out front.
Yeah, those are some practical examples you just shared, like role play at home, having them practice going to the principal, and what they might say, how they would describe the problem. Yeah. But there is a moment, like when you see that they're hurting. It's like, how do you well, I don't know. I guess it is a choice that the parent will have to make at some point. Like, at what point you're going to let them kind of go through that, because we all have to at some point. So I don't have that problem right now personally. We that's not my issue. So I'll just talk about what my issue is, and maybe if somebody has questions after they watch this, and that maybe we can have a follow-up if there's questions. But so for my thing is, my struggle is the second thing that I wrote on Facebook. Like, I messaged you, hey, I got this. Actually, this has happened. This is what has happened recently. And it's sort of, I kind of just let it go. But what happened was, my son, who's an artist, well, I call him an artist because I think he's great at art, and he knows he can do art, but he wouldn't, I don't know if he would call himself an artist. Like, he's just like, it's just something I do. But he's in art class, and his art teacher sees his work and put his name in to compete for something. And not everyone like, we're asked, did everyone get this? And like, no, she chose me from the class. But she wanted him to do like 6 mock-ups by a certain date in order to like sort of see which direction he's going before he puts all this effort. That makes sense. So it seemed like he was interested. He told us so we could give him ideas, and then when it later on, I asked him, "So, what did you decide to go with? Like, which mock-ups are you doing?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm not gonna do it. I'll apply next year." And I thought, like, what do you mean? Like, like I was just confused. Like, what do you mean? And he said, I mean, they have it every year. I'm just gonna do it next year. Like, I'm not gonna do it now. And I got mad and kind of blew up a little. We were in the car, but then I just stopped talking, and then I asked my husband to go for a walk, and we walked the block as I vented what I was feeling, and like for me, and then I realized in talking to Daniel, obviously, I am an adult, so I see things differently than he does, and
Absolutely.
and he is probably looking at it as this is more work. Like, why do I need to do this anyway? And besides that, as an artist, to put your work out there and have it be judged by somebody, some arbitrary judge, like, that's a little, that is intimidating. And it's like, why go through that? And so he didn't say all of this, but after I was like, I know. But I also know that in life, you're, well, not that you have to put yourself out there, but I mean, in order to move ahead in different areas, you're gonna have to take risks. Um, so I don't know. So basically, the boils down to, at what point does a parent, me, continue to push because I can see the value in you doing this anyway, because it could open up. I see possibilities and the value in you going through this experience. It's not about you winning or not. It's just about you doing it. Um, and my husband's point of view at that time was kind of like, hey, your teacher believed in you. She put your name in, and you need to do it, because somebody, I guess it was kind of like somebody else sees this, you do it. So that's another view. I don't know. What are your thoughts as both parent and teacher?
Well, it's definitely a difficult situation because the mom in you wants them to do well and you want to push them, of course. And your husband's absolutely right that it's more work. And why would he do more work? Do we want our kids to do things just to make other people happy? Do we want them to do things to make them happy? And it is very vulnerable to put your work out there. So I think you've already covered all the topics. So then, you just have to have that conversation with the teenager and say, why don't you want to do it? And here's the perks. And did you think about these things? Maybe you can talk them into it, or maybe you really can't. And so it is a really fine line between being a parent who's encouraging and pushing for their best interests, but also letting them become their own people, because they are not us, which is so hard as a mom, right? Because we were literally connected to this baby at one point, and now they are their own individual people with their own thoughts and ideas, and sometimes those thoughts and ideas are just wrong as far as we're concerned. They made the wrong choice. So when to step in and when not to. I mean, definitely step in if it's something that is going to be harmful to them, if they're going to do something dangerous or that would really harm them. If it's just a missed opportunity, it gets even more difficult, because then shouldn't you? Maybe see if you can get him to agree to do it next year, or he'll be older and wiser. But if you push them to do something they don't want to do now, they're not going to put their whole heart into it. They're not going to make 6 more pieces of their best effort. So it can just be a battle that's not worth it. So I don't have the answer, but I think you did a lot of things right in telling them how important you thought it was, what an opportunity you thought it was, and then stopping. You got to stop complaining, and I'm just as guilty as the next mom. I tell my kids and kind of get on a bandwagon, then I have to tell myself, okay, I've said all I've got to say. I need to stop talking now. But give it some time. Go for the walk, calm down, and try to see it from their point of view, because teenagers often don't make any sense until you figure out their kind of way of thinking, and then they do have reasons to come to these decisions. As an adult, it's not the decisions that we would do, but they have reasons, and sometimes they give a lot more weight to what their friends think or peer pressure or things that as adults we would say that's ridiculous, but in their world that matters a lot. They're not thinking about paying the bills as a famous artist, you know. They're not worried about that. They're worried about what the cute girl next to them thinks, you know. So yeah, if you can get your teenager to talk with you and talk about those things, and you can figure out why they're making that decision, and sometimes you can guide them to make a better decision that more aligns to what you want. But then sometimes you just have to respect the fact that they're going to be their own people. That comes to dating too. Sometimes they date just ridiculous people, and you're like, what are you doing? But you have to sort of honor that, and like, oh, I see that, yeah, that is a good quality in that person. That's a quality. You know, yeah, he's very kind. He's a nice boy. He's failing his classes, but yes, he's a nice boy. So it's so hard because these are not the things I would choose, but we have to honor their choices. And then say, but, you know, wouldn't it be great if you dated someone that maybe had a future? It'd be great. It's so hard. So I guess I can just tell you you're not alone.
Yeah,
Dating is really hard.
wow, yeah, there is value in talking to people who are a little ahead of you in the journey, because we certainly haven't talked about dating at all. So, but yes, that eventually might come, you know, these conversations about that, about relationships, you know, who you choosing to yoke yourself with is certainly, to me, very important, but to them it's like, you know, I don't know. Or it might be very important to them, it's just they look at things a little differently. I think you understand, and I appreciate that.
And it goes for all things. Are they going to put in the extra effort to study for the test, to try and bump up the GPA, to maybe get a scholarship? They're not thinking about that. They're going to just go for whatever they feel like they need for that class. Are they going to try for honor roll? Are they going to try for this? Are they going to, you know, take the time to write the essay for that scholarship? There's so many things that we're like, this is what you should do. And then they're teenagers and they do what they do. You know, they should go out for the team. They should put themselves out there. They should take advantage of all the great opportunities of being young, a teenager, and then they choose things when you're just completely baffled as a parent. You're like, really? Of all the choices, that's what we went with? Okay. But ultimately, you're trying to teach them to make decisions. So you want to honor their decisions, even if it's a moderately good decision. They made a decision themselves. They had some thought process to it. They're going to stand by that decision. So there's a lot of good that you can take from that. Like, you could compliment your son and say, hey, you did a really good job of thinking about what's important to you, and, you know, standing up for yourself and saying, this is what I want, this is what I don't want. You know, you should continue to do things that are in your best interest and not just what other people want you to do. Because if you think about it, there's not so much difference between doing things to please a parent and doing things to please friends and peer pressure. So you want a student or a teenager who's a bit stubborn, because then they're going to be who they are, and they're going to stand up to their friends too and say, no, I don't want to do that. So you can always kind of find the good in the situation and say, hey, you did a really good job of, you know, standing by what you decided was best for you, and I'm proud of you for that. And maybe next year you could try. Maybe next year we could go out for the art thing. But yeah, so being stubborn, being a teenager who's going to kind of dig in their heels can be a really great quality.
Yeah,
risk
even
taker is not always a great quality.
well, I like how I think, as a person that just shared with you a problem, like, and by you taking time to, like, first listen and then to restate what you heard that I said, like the things that I pointed out and that you picked up on, you told me this is what I heard, and then you tell me, well, this was good that you did these things. Perhaps you could do this or ask them these questions next, and and then you said, well, consider their point of view. So I can see why it's working for your children, because anyone that feels like, okay, at least they heard me, even though they don't agree, they understand what I'm saying, and they, even though what they're hoping that I'll do is different than what I'll choose, at least I know that they understood what I'm saying. They understand my perspective. It seems like they understand my perspective.
Yeah.
So maybe one day I'll consider the advice that they're giving, because
Yeah.
at least they understand. Huh. And so two things.
That's a really good point, that sometimes they don't do what we want right now, but it doesn't mean that that conversation was lost. Like, they hear, and a lot of parents feel like their kids don't hear them, but I will tell you from talking to a lot of kids, they hear their parents. They just don't always react or act immediately, but they hear what's being said. And so that I always thought was really encouraging, because I would tell kids stuff in class, kind of language arts. We talk about a book, and maybe we try and give them some life wisdom, and they would say, "Oh, my mom always says that. Oh, my dad always says that." And I'm like, "Oh, well, you should listen to them. Like, your parents are really wise." But, they hear it, but they have to maybe make sure that that's true. Or when they hear multiple adults in their life tell them that, then they're more likely to listen. So as a parent, you still want to plant those seeds. They just might not get watered for a while. But it's also great to have, teachers, youth group leaders, coaches. There's a lot of people who can talk to your kids and enforce what you're saying. So even if, when you're living with a teenager, it can be challenging. For everybody, it can be very challenging to live with teenagers. But if they hear it from the parent, and then they also hear it from the kid, that can be really powerful. And it might take them weeks or months to react in the way you want. Maybe a full year rolls around, and the next thing you know, he is going to take a risk. Maybe not even with that situation, but maybe with entering an art contest or a writing contest or some other thing. Or maybe it's in college, he goes out for something. So like that conversation that you had with him in the car is still very, very valuable, even though he might not change his mind right now. Because you listened, you told him how important it was, how much you believe in him, how talented you think he is. So all that's still there. Like, he's still heard all that. And that's really great.
Well, it's not really great, the method in which I did all that. I was yelling. So now I'm like, but they hear all that, and they see all that too. He knows how passionate I am about him doing things. So, and then I thought, you don't want to react this way. He's the one that decided to say, I'm not gonna do. He could have just not told me. So do I really want to shut down communication because I'm like overreacting because he said something that he knew I probably wouldn't like? So I don't want to shut down communication. I of course want to continue where he can tell me things that are difficult for me to hear. I still want him to talk to me, and so I gotta control how I react to some things that they say, because I want them to continue to talk to me. I am listening. So
Yeah.
so here's
That's so true. As parents, we're growing. As parents, as they're growing as teenagers, we're growing, and so I'll just speak for myself. I get it wrong a lot, and I overreact sometimes, or I give them my soapbox while we're in the car and they can't escape. That's usually where we do most of our talking. So yeah, as parents, it's high stress. You've invested so much in these children, and they're starting to make decisions for themselves that we don't always agree with. So yeah, you have to give yourself a little bit of grace. Maybe it's not the way you want to react next time, but you cared, you were talking to him, you were passionate about his well-being, and he'll remember that. They tend to remember the best parts of childhood, so even if we're not always at our A game or our very best performance, or what we would want maybe the neighborhood to see, our kids know we love them, and that's what's really important. So he'll forgive your volume maybe in the car.
Yeah, they will. They pick up on the underlying, do you care for me or not? do you love me or not? So I think you're right. They do know and sense that. Um, and like how I think anybody can hear this conversation and sense that you are very encouraging to your children from what you're saying, but also to me, like as in this conversation, quick to point out, well, don't beat yourself up too much, because you've done these things. So it's like,
Yeah.
okay, thank you for pointing that out. And so I can definitely see how you would do that in a relationship with your children. Um, yeah, what great modeling.
Life is hard. Life is very hard, and everyone's doing the best they can. And even when I talk to kids, to my students, I tell them that same message. Your parents are doing the best they can. You don't know what all they're dealing with their work and finances and marriage and all of that. Like, your parents are doing the best they can. You're doing the best you can as a teenager, and it might not be perfect. You might not have perfect grades or that kind of thing, but like, life is messy. We're all just doing the best we can because it's messy. Being human is messy. But I think if your heart's in the right place, your kids know that.
Mhm. What a benefit for your students to hear another adult say, "Hey, your parents really they're doing the best that they can. They're learning how to be parents." All of these
Yeah.
comments that you have. I mean, wow, what a blessing that your students get to hear that from another adult. Because I'm sure they're saying that. Maybe the parents are saying that, but you don't believe them. Like, yeah, whatever. But to have another adult in their life sort of affirm, like, yeah, I'm a parent. I don't do everything right all the time. I'm trying, like I'm trying. Wow, what a gift that they may not know that they have in you. Wow. I remember when I was growing up, I assumed that my parents knew what they were doing. Like, I
Yeah.
assumed that they were making, like, they had a plan and they were making these
Yeah.
choices. But now that I'm an adult, I know they did not know what they were doing. Like, they were just, like you saying, doing the best that they can with what they had going on with the finances, like you mentioned that they have going on, with the fact that they had two, kids who were about to enter college age at the same time, and like having to think about that, having to think about retirement at that
Hard.
time, like all of these things that I just thought, oh, like, what you're doing, like, why are we in this situation? I'm thinking, but now I like, oh, wow. I So I apologize to my parents sometimes when I talk to them. Like, yeah, I get it now. I didn't get it then. I thought I got it. I thought I knew at that time. But now that I'm older and in the situation, I see, oh, um, yeah, I didn't know as much as I thought I knew. So yeah. So one question. I remember your oldest, even 12 years ago, her personality was very like independent or leadership. She displayed definite leadership qualities as a young girl. Like, that's what we remember. My husband and I remember that about her. And so, looking at her journey a little bit on social media, I see now she's in junior ROTC, and I don't know what else she's doing. She's in sports, and so I just wondered, as a mom of a child who has, like, we know our children's personality. Like, we spent a lot of time with them. We know how they are. How do you have you sort of invested in that, or have you like nurtured that for her to like hone in that and be a good version of a leader versus a bad? Like, how did you navigate that as she was growing up?
Well, it's funny that you remember that because, when I was first starting out teaching, I thought I was this great. And I taught younger kids. When I first started teaching, I taught younger kids. And so I had a classroom full of 5-year-olds, and they all did what they were supposed to do. And I really patted myself on the back. And then I had my own children, and she was not like the others. She was so strong-willed or stubborn, or just, she had her own opinions about how she wanted to do things. Um, always a kind heart, but just a big personality. And think she was maybe 3 or so, and we were having like a battle of the wills about nap time or something like that. Something really important. And I remember just being so frustrated and saying, I have a degree in child development.
Oh my goodness.
I have an experience working with children, and I can't get my 3-year-old to take a nap. And I remember my mom, who is very encouraging, and she said, yeah, you know what you're doing, and God gave you her because he knew she needed you. And it just was such a game changer. It just stopped me in my tracks, and I was like, it's not that I'm failing because she's not behaving like the other kids. It's that she's got this huge personality. And so, just hearing my mom say, God chose you to be her mom because she needs you. It changed, like, reframed the way I saw the situation. I get a little teary-eyed, I think about it, but
yeah.
But yeah, I was so frustrated leading up to that, and then hearing those words, it changed the way I saw it, the way I saw the situation. And I thought, yeah, she does have this just huge personality, and I can choose to fight with her and try and like break that spirit, or I can kind of harness that energy and direct it. And so that was kind of the choice I made when she was 3, is I wasn't going to like force her into extreme obedience, because it's just not her personality. My other child is very compliant.
Yeah, she's different.
Yeah, if I say don't cross this line, she'll be like, okay, cool. Even as a toddler, you could leave the baby gate open and she wouldn't go through it because clearly that's where she's supposed to stop. But they're just complete opposites. And so I think it's good when you have multiple kids, because you realize a lot of who they are has really nothing to do with your parenting. We could tell ourselves like, I did that, but as soon as you have multiple kids, you're like, I didn't do any of this. Like, this is who they are. And so I just accepted that that's kind of her personality, and I've tried to guide that. And yeah, she's not very good at sitting in a chair and studying for hours and hours. So she didn't have great report cards in elementary school. But she's gone on, and through high school, she's developed those skills, and she's in AP classes, and she's...
Wait, how did she develop those skills? How did she turn from this to that? How?
She had great teachers. She was really fortunate, and there were a lot of teachers that helped guide her. She chose...
Wait, hold on. So as a teacher, did you personally talk to your coworkers to say, hey, could you, because, you work in the same area with them?
No, it was more of like, I knew what a great teacher that was, and so the year that she would hit that grade level, I could see the changes. You know how you can, like, your kids will come home and you can hear phrases that are obviously phrases from the classroom. That kind of way of doing things where you're like, oh, like they, when the like kindergartners doing like playing school with the Barbies, you can hear the teacher. Like, exactly what that teacher says all day, because that's what they're going to like repeat when they're like playing. And so even in like middle school and high school, I would see her say, oh, I better write that in my agenda. And I'm like, okay, I know that that's a school thing, and that's coming from school, and her teachers are modeling being responsible and telling them to write down due dates and things like that. So yeah, I could see when she was with really strong teachers that would invest time in her, that she would absorb that like a sponge. There was also sort of a really funny moment in middle school where we had honor roll assemblies, and she realized that all of her friends made principal's honor roll, which is straight A's. And I'm not even sure if she made honor roll at that time, or if she did, it was like the bottom one, the like half B's. But she realized that all of her friends had really good grades. And so she just decided she needed to get better grades, but it was her choice. Up until then, I had tried to like model homework time, and I had read with them, but I didn't want to make my expectations get shoved on them. Like, I was a really good student and I made really good grades, but that's not necessarily who they are. And so I didn't want to push my goals and my values on them, because they're their own people. And I'm never as outgoing and as strong of a leader and those types of things that my oldest is. So I tried to encourage good behaviors, but not like, you make straight A's. But then she realized her friends were making straight A's, and then she decided that it was her choice, and she wanted to start making good grades. So sometimes we have to just be a little bit patient as parents, kind of, again, plant the seed, make the best conditions possible, and then they sprout when they're ready. But now it's all her. Like, I don't have to chase her all through high school. I've not had to chase her about grades. She wants the grades. She wants to be a good student, and so she studies when I don't even know she's in a room studying. So
I just want to bring out that I know you're talking about your daughter, but in hearing how you're even talking about grades, because a lot of people are very concerned about grades, and so they harp on grades a lot, as if that's the only thing that matters in the world, like so. But what I heard you say was, as a middle schooler, her grades weren't your level of grades when you were in school. So you had to make a choice at that time, I guess, to like, well, what really matters here? Does it matter that she has these grades that I had, that I know that she's capable of if she works harder or whatever? Like, you could have had that perspective, or you could have the perspective of, well, what's most important here. So how did you let that go, I guess? Because for some people, that is like, you have to do this because it's going to amount to, graduation and a job and, like all of these things that you sort of, but right there, when she was younger, you made a choice to not focus on that. How did you do that? Or why did you do that?
I guess a couple of reasons. I mean, like I said, she had a strong personality, and so it was a matter of sort of choosing your battles.
Okay.
So I drew a hard line at, she had to have B's. That was kind of the line. I knew she was capable of A's, but it just wasn't a battle I wanted to fight. And then, the other part of that is I was a single parent for a long, 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 long time. And that sort of makes decisions for you, because there's only so many hours in the day, and I just didn't have the energy left to fight with her when I got home, because I'm already trying to get all these kids at school to get their assignments turned in and that sort of thing.
Okay.
So sometimes you just have to pick your battles as far as, how many fights can I have going at one time?
Yeah.
You know?
Okay,
So,
that's realistic. That makes
tired.
sense. That makes
I
sense.
was just tired at the end of the day, but I thought, I need to be a responsible parent. She needs at least good grades. They could be better, but she's involved in sports, and she's involved in clubs, and she's doing other things. And so I think a lot of parents mean well, but I see a lot of really, really stressed out kids because they think they have to do all the things.
Yeah.
And they have to do them all with excellence. We want a well-rounded student for college, but they have to excel and be the best at all these different areas. And it's unrealistic.
Yeah.
And it really stresses kids out. And so I also wanted a happy child. I didn't want a child who was full of anxiety. I didn't want a child who was afraid of failing, or, me being disappointed in her. I didn't want her to have that type of like mental stress. So I wanted to make sure that I set goals that she could achieve, and we could all, end the day happy.
Okay, one more question about that. So how did you sort of not take ownership of her actions and her results? Like, how did you not, like, because, there's a lot of comparisons with parenting, like, well, my kids got blah, 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 and what about your kids? You're not saying anything, because, but like, how do you not sort of take on what they do or don't do as like reflection of you? How did you do that?
Well, like you just said, you have to identify it and call it and be like, they're not me. I had good grades, but I wasn't the captain of any team, So not as parents have back from, they are not locations that we get to, show off like trophies. They're their own people. And again, I think when you have multiple kids, it becomes a little bit easier, because you're like, I did my job. Now you have to choose the other side of it. My dad used to always say, I don't want to take all the credit because I don't want to take all the blame either. And so he put a lot of responsibility on us as students. I'm not going to take all the credit, because if it goes wrong, I'm not going to take all the blame either. So we always knew that we had a lot of ownership in who we were as people, and we set our own goals, and we chose our own path in life, and our parents were just really there to be a resource. They kind of cheered from the sidelines, and they helped when they could. They filled out the FAFSA so we could take out our own student loans, that kind of thing. Like, they were there, but they were always in the backseat. And so, as parents, we just have to stop acting like our children are something we get credit for, because they're not. We're more like stewards, and We are responsible to make sure that they
Stewards.
have their resources, but they are their own individual people. They really are their own people.
Hmm. Wow. This is good. Like, this is good. This is a great conversation. Like, and I wonder, would it have been effective for me to have this conversation earlier, like when they were earlier? But then I probably wouldn't have paid attention because I would have been like, I know what I'm doing. Like, I'm good. I
Well, and I
guess.
didn't know all this 5 years ago, 10
Yeah.
years ago. I didn't know either. So these are just things I've learned.
Mm-hmm.
And now that we're getting near the end of high school, I feel like maybe I have the ability to say it worked, but I'm still like, we haven't crossed that stage. When they walk across the stage, that's the finish line. So it still could go terribly wrong. These are just my experiences. I remember Brad used to always use the expression, when the wheels came off the parenting wagon. And that can still happen at any time. So I try to be a bit humble because we haven't finished the race yet, so
Mm-hmm.
we still could have some bumps in the road.
So is the end of the race for you, based on what you just said, graduation from high school?
That's where I see the end of raising children. After that, then they're adults, and then we have a very different role as mentoring adults and having an adult relationship. And I've been really fortunate to have a wonderful adult relationship with my parents. I know not everybody does, but yeah, my parents have been fantastic in our relationship as adults, and it's different. It's really kind of cool to hang out with your parents when you're an adult. So I kind of look forward to hanging out with my kids when they're adults. I think that's going to be cool.
Okay, so the switch happens at the graduation of high school in your family, kind of.
Yeah, because then they move out. Particularly in our situation, my child's going to move to another continent because she'll be going back to the States.
Wow. Okay.
So I've had to very consciously prepare her for that, that she will be on her own at 18. And so I want her to be confident. I want her to be able to make decisions and handle problems because I literally will not be there. There's no way I can help her with that. I can FaceTime and give encouragement, but that'll be it. So, the June is coming.
Wow. Yeah, that's also good to have a goal in mind. I mean, and in this case, you have an actual date goal. This is where she's going to be, and you're in your mind, you're like, I need to do the best to prepare her for that life of me not being there. So if I had held her hand the whole way and did everything for her until then that's setting her up for a great failure. So you don't want that. So we have to let go earlier so that they could practice, I guess, at home.
Absolutely. And you hear about the helicopter parents and that kind of thing. And it is a cultural thing. And I don't blame parents because, if anything happens, if a child is in the front yard and something happens, where were the parents? Where were the parents? So as a culture, we're expecting parents to be there at all times. But the reality is we can't. And certainly once they're adults, we can't be there. So we have to prepare ourselves and prepare them for that time. And it starts really young. It starts when they're 7, making their own bed, and 10 when they're making hot dogs on the stove. You have to teach them independence all along. But parenting's the only job that if you do it right, you put yourself out of work. So.
And I just want to point out, like you were saying, making their bed when they're 7. So my kids don't make their beds. So I just want to, not that, because some people were like, I got to make sure I do all the things that she said so that I can have the same results that she said. But it doesn't work like that. Like, I don't pressure my kids with making their bed or keeping their room clean, because to me it's like, well, you need your space. So fine. As long as it's not creeping out of the room or something like that. But that's we all get to be sort of individual and make our own choices there, because it's like, what matters to you and your family? What are your values that you want to pass on in your family life and relationships? And so, so it can be different. It can look different. So as people talk to others and get advice, sometimes we just have to be careful. Like, we listen, but we also are careful. Like, we're not, it's not like a recipe where it's like, you do these things, you get this. Like, it doesn't work like that at all. We get ideas and we get encouragement, but ultimately for me, when I struggle, it is encouraging to talk to others that have children ahead, and I realized, oh, I'm not the only one that struggles here and had to work
Yeah.
through this. But what's most encouraging, like for me, also for me, I pray. Like when my daughter is wakes up in a mood and slams the door when she leaves for the bus out, and just, God, please help her, help me, help her. Like I don't know what to do. I didn't do anything for her to act like this, and so it's like self for me to know what she was really modeling here. So okay, that. But then also it's like, God, I know you know her. You know everything about her. You know what's going on in her mind and in her heart, and I need you to help me to just be the best parent that I can be with her, because I don't know what I'm doing. I feel like I'm failing. I need you to just be in this situation, be in her heart and in her life. And as she goes to school, like, I don't know all that's going on. She chooses to tell me some things, but not all things, so I have to, I often go to God and like, please, like be in her life. And so that is comforting to me, so that I'm not dumping on her or dumping on other people because I'm frustrated, or because I'm anxious because I don't know what, all of these things. Like I sort of dump on God and like please, like this is how I'm feeling. I don't know what to do. And then eventually I feel better, but also he sends people in my life at certain times that give me the encouragement that I need. Like, hey, you're doing it. Like you as a parent are doing exactly what you can be doing, which is keep coming to me, and also just be you know be humble. Like just like you're trying to figure it out, and that's where like you're not gonna have all the answers like you want it, and just like they're not either. Like you said, we're all just sort of doing the best that we can. And so yeah, just
I had a lot of those conversations with God where I said, "It's your child, God. I give them to you because I don't know what to do." So I had a lot of those conversations and still do. It only gets worse when they're driving and mobile and out alone in the world. So
yeah.
you just pray that Jesus is with them and try and stay calm yourself and hope that it all works out fine. And usually it does. But yeah, I think that's really important to point out that there's no perfect recipe. I guarantee you, if I went in my kids' room right now, their beds aren't made. It's just an example.
Uh-huh.
And a lot of it is just, again, it's trying to get through the day. So as a single mom, they started doing their own laundry when I realized that rather than put away the folded clothes, they were shoving them in the laundry basket. And I about lost my mind. That was not a pretty moment. There was smoke coming out my ears. And so that's when they started washing their own clothes. And they were very young. It was like lower elementary school. But
wow, yeah.
I just couldn't take it anymore. And I kind of snapped. And I was just like, spent all day on Saturday doing all this laundry. And I wash it, and I dry it, and I fold it, and put it back in the laundry basket. And so, that's when we took on the responsibility of doing our own laundry, which sounds really beautiful and, sounds so great.
Yeah, there's always a reason, right, why we kind of move ahead. Yeah.
It was I was losing my mind, and it was a thing, and then it taught them that responsibility for what they needed at that moment. So, yeah, and then I have another friend who does the laundry for her whole family of 6 on the weekend. Even though she works full-time, she likes it, and she just does it for them. And they're still responsible kids. They do other things. They have, ways that they make money, babysitting and dog sitting and all sorts of things. They're very responsible young people, but she likes doing their laundry. I don't like doing laundry. So, every family's different, and the recipe's different. But as long as your heart's in the right place and the kids know that you believe in them and that they are capable of taking care of themselves and being responsible in some way, then that's the heart of it all.
Yeah, that was a great example about the contrast with even the laundry. Yeah, that's a great example about
There's
how
no right
families
or
are
wrong.
different. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, so last question, and I thank you for this. It's been a great conversation. I know that it will be encouraging for others to hear it and be encouraged in their parenting. Like, hey, others have been on this journey, and it feels messy and uncomfortable, and you often have questions, and you often reach out to others for help. Like, yes. So, final question, and then if you have anything else that you'd like to say, feel free. So, but I thought, could you share what is the best way that, as a teacher, what is the best way a parent can support, can, like, I guess, encourage our children's teachers? Because one of the things you said with your oldest, you said that she had great teachers, and you could hear some of the comments that the teachers made in class. You can hear it come out, and you knew that wasn't you, and they had picked it up from school. And I thought, wow, some teachers don't realize their impact. Like, they do, but they forget because there's so much stuff going on. And I just wonder, how can we really be an encouragement to our children's teachers? Because really, the work that you all do is so important. Like you said, they spend a lot of time at school. If they go to public school, like, they're just gone, and they're in the care of others, other adults. How do we express our thanks? How do we encourage them? How do we, what do you feel is what's best? Speak on behalf of teachers. Let us know, how you just, I don't know. Tell me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's a great question, and especially you see what's going on now. And
Yes.
there's so much conflict, but people go into teaching because they care about kids, and parents care about their kids. 99.99% of the time, parents want what's best for their kids, and teachers want what's best for their students. So I think the biggest thing is just knowing, like, we're on the same side. It's a partnership, and every time I meet parents, I want them to know that I care about their students, and that we're going to work together, because teenagers can be crafty, and
Yes.
they can play one against the other. And so one of the most powerful things we can do is just let the students know that the adults are on the same side. There's none of this, kind of he said, she said, or my teacher said, but my mom said. So just pick up the phone. We'll just get to the bottom of this, make sure we're on the same side. And that way we can move forward. And the students not playing games or trying to get around the responsibilities. So yeah, just being on the same side, being that partnership between the home and the school, and working together. And, I always try and honor what parents want. And I'm always very respectful to parents. And then I hope that I get that back, that even if the parent doesn't understand why I have a policy or why I run my classroom that way, the message should be, but that's what your teachers asked you to do, so that's what you need to do. And same thing, your parents are doing the best they can. You need to do what your parents are asking you to do. If you don't want your parents nagging you, do it before they have to tell you. I use that phrase quite a bit. My parents were always telling me to do my chores. Well, you could, like, surprise them and get it done before they have to tell you. So, trying to reinforce the home and the school partnership is huge. And telling parents that they do a good job. Their kids, all kids, have great qualities, and they have something that shines in them. And then, parents can also reinforce that, your teachers are working really hard. You need to do your part and finish the lesson, or, do the homework, or study for the test, or whatever it is. So that's huge. If we can do that, then everything works perfectly. But when it's there's tension, or one side's undermining the other, then that's the worst situation for a student, because then they think they don't have to listen to either side, and they can try to cut corners and get around the responsibilities. But as long as the students and the teachers and the parents are all working together, then great things happen, and kids blossom, and it's really exciting. So yeah, as parents, just reinforce what the teacher's asking. Don't be afraid to call teachers and ask, what do I need to do? What's not working here? What do you see? And not be so defensive, kind of what we talked about earlier, where parents sometimes are really defensive because they want their kid to be perfect.
Yeah. And
we have to be receptive to the fact that they're not perfect. I know my kids are not perfect. So even when I talk to my colleagues and they're like, hey, your kid is, like, not doing this, or is doing that, you just have to be humble and say, I hear you. Thanks for letting me know. And how can we fix this? And that's huge. And then we can really help kids get past those hurdles. Because they're humans, and they're young, very inexperienced humans that don't have the best decision-making skills. So the parents are the wise ones, right? The adults, we know better. We've got more life experience, so we can work together. And that's what we want to do. We want parents and teachers to always be on the same side, which is the side that is the best interest of the kid. We all want the same thing. So, yeah.
That's yes. Thank you for sharing those thoughts and also including the other side of it. Because as you were talking at first, I was thinking, yeah, but some teachers aren't as great as you are, like, and then, but as you kept talking, you pointed out, well, but you can still find the good. You can still see, and you can still find common points. You can still hold on to the hope that, or that they ultimately probably, I don't really know, but we assume that they came into the field for good reasons, but but you can also have a community. You can also talk to them like they're people. You can make appointments. You can call. You can ask. You can express some of these thoughts to them, not to the student or to our child to make things worse. You can go directly to them and ask,
Right.
"Hey, I'm sensing this, feeling this. I got this question." And then get to the bottom of it and clear that up, and then be united as a team, and instead of stirring the pot and just making things worse. So like, how can we find a way to like get to the bottom of things and ask how can we make things better, or even to be open to hearing that maybe what my child is presenting when they come home is actually different than what the what the teacher sees when they're at school, and like what's going on, who we gonna believe. Like we can have that conversation, we can get to the bottom, we can clear it up, clear the air, and then we can get back together again, reunited as a team, because we all want ultimately this the best.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Kids are famous for saying, my teacher gave me this bad grade because she does. Right? That's kind of like, why'd you get a D in math? Oh, because my teacher doesn't like me. So he just gave me that grade, which is, crazy. That's ridiculous. We don't randomly give out grades. So there's assignments and tests that are attached to those grades. And it's never just, I don't like you, so I'm going to give you a bad grade. Like, so that might be how kids perceive it, and I feel like that to them, but that's never the case. It's really, almost, I won't say never, but almost never. That is not the case. The teachers are asking for ABC and the student is doing XYZ. Like, there's a disconnect. So if the parents can just say, what does my child need to do? And then they can have that conversation with the child. Well, did you do the thing that you weren't doing? Like, the teacher said to do this. Did you do that? Well, no. Okay, then. So now we know what we need to work on. So just pick up the phone or send an email in a very non-hostile and collaborative way, and good things can happen. And I know parents are busy and time is limited, and teachers are really busy and time is limited. But a quick phone call or a quick email can clear the air and get back on the right path, and make the rest of the year so much easier, so that you're not having those conversations, arguments with your kids. Why do you have bad grades? They don't like me. No, I did everything. How was your day at school? No, fine, nothing. No, I don't have any homework. Why does it say you're missing homework? Oh,
So
cut through all of that. Just cut through all of that, and go to the source and have a 10-minute meeting, and then the kids know they can't play that game, and then usually it works really quickly. It's fine. So it's kind of heartbreaking when you see reports on the news. Of course, I see and I watch news from all the states, and I have students that come from all the states, because that's how military schools work. I have students directly coming from many different states, so it's sort of a cross-section of America. So I think kids are kids everywhere, and parents are working really hard everywhere, and teachers work really hard. So there's really, it makes me really sad when I see how hostile it can be in a lot of places, and how upset people are. And there's a lot going on. There's a lot of problems in the world today. But for what we can control, what we have influence over, we can make it better. We can help that kid and we can help in that situation, and we can have a huge influence in our local community. And so those are the things that we can focus on. We can do good things, and we can work together, and then everything is okay.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, assume the best of the teacher, and that you have an ally here, both parent and teacher working together for the best for the child, for our child, and the student. Like they're not an enemy. They are
Right.
trying to work to do the best for your child with what they have.
Powerful message for the teenager to hear that message that I've got all these adults that are rallying around me. So I guess I'm going to be successful because they all say I'm going to be. So that's such a powerful message for students to hear. Yeah, not getting stuck in a war zone and blame on both sides and all that, but just all these adults are rooting for me, and they're all working together for me. So as a student, I think that can really build them up, and then they can be their best, which might not be perfect, might not even be mediocre, but they're going to be able to do their best at that time.
That's certainly a shift in perspective of how, as a parent, I would look at teachers sending my kids to school, understanding that they're going to school to be taught by a group of adults we are all together, working together in our own spheres, as best as we can for the behalf of the child, our future, like to groom them and to help them. Yeah, that's a different way of looking at it, because there are other ways of looking at it that doesn't help anybody, really. It just makes it worse for everyone, and no one wants to do anything, So, yeah, I like that alternative way of looking at the situation and addressing the situation from a positive, hopeful mindset of, hey, we're all in this together for the benefit of our future generations, like your future. The child's future, the student's future.
They're the future, so we're all going to be retired, and the world will be in their hands. So we really should prepare them. We should get them ready, and we should make sure that they are confident, well-adjusted, educated, and kind young people. And we can do that. And again, I fully believe parents want what's best for their kids, and they're doing the best they can. And I believe that's true. After 20 years in teaching, I think that's true of nearly every person I've ever worked with. They're doing the best they can, and they want what's best for kids. So I would say that's true I counted it one time, I think I'm somewhere around 1,300 students maybe I've had over my career, 1,200, 300, something like that, well over 1,000 students. And yeah, I would say 99.99% of parents are doing the best they can, and they want what's best for their kids, even if they're not, the trophy-winning best parent. None of us are. We make mistakes, it's messy, but we're doing the best we can, and we care about our kids. And same thing for teachers. We're not perfect. We definitely make mistakes, but we're in it for the kids, and we want them to do well and be successful. So we're all really going for the same goal. We're on the same team for sure.
I know I said I was going to end, but I just got to say, I guess I like teachers because I understand that they're people, and but I guess somewhere in me, which I didn't realize until this conversation, that I think I started to not trust some teachers. And because sometimes my kids come home and they say they did this or that or this and that, and I'm like, what are y'all doing? They're just like, what are they doing? Just like, what, so, but hearing you just repeatedly over and over, like, we're on the same team. Like, this is, we want what's best for your child. And maybe there needs to be a conversation between parent and teacher. Maybe what they're expressing is not full reality of what's actually going on in the classroom. Maybe the teacher has a different perspective that looks different than what they're painting when they come home. And so maybe that's not all there is. And so that's what I realize now in having this conversation. Like, I guess I had a little mistrust of, like, what are they doing all day long? Like, I don't know, but as you're saying, like, no, really, teachers want the best for their students. And of course, I want the best for my child. And I just hearing you say that over and over is like, is so positive. It's so good for me to hear a teacher express this, because we don't really interact with the teachers. I feel like they're super busy, and so I don't want to bother them that much. And there's some issue, but like hearing you say this and hearing your perspective and hearing how teachers are important from your perspective as both teacher and parent, and understanding how we can work together and how we can support one another, it's like, oh, I guess I forgot that along the way. And
Yeah.
I want to, like, teachers aren't all bad. Like, they're, look at this. Like, you're a great model of, like, hey, so, because a part of me was thinking, no, that's just you. You are a good teacher, but the other ones, I don't know. But no, I don't actually, if I think about it, there have been some stellar teachers in my kids' lives, but maybe there's even more. I just didn't really interact with them. I don't, it's just like, wow. So thank you. Just like expressing that. So maybe as a parent, if parents watch this and they see, well, wow, what is our relationship with our children's, like, what am I thinking about the teachers that they have? Am I thinking that they're the reason why my kids aren't as smart as, or whatever, like, am I thinking that, or like, what's going on? So just something to think about, and to wonder, am I being supportive of what the teachers are trying to do? And are we indeed working together to, motivate our kids or students to like move forward in life, like how we all want?
Something else to sort of add to that, like as a teacher, I could say, oh, that parent should be doing this with their child. But like, I don't know what else is going on in the home. And the same thing is true for the classroom. Like, as a parent, you might say, like, my child needs this, but there are 20 or 30 other students in that classroom and other things going on, and mandates and requirements and budgets. And, there's so many things going on. So I think as a parent, you just have to trust that the teacher really is doing the best they can. But it's a whole complicated thing that no one outside of that room can understand. And then the same thing with, your family. We could say, oh, parents should read with their children in an hour. But as a single parent, like, that wasn't always a reality. And so there's all kinds of things going on inside the home that no one else can understand because it's unique to your family. And every classroom is unique. And so there just has to be trust in that relationship, that the teacher's doing everything that he or she can for every single student in that room.
Mm-hmm.
And not every teacher connects with, like, rainbows and sunshine with every single student. And again, if you've had multiple kids, they could have the same teacher and one will love that teacher and the other one will be like, meh. So that happens too. There are different personalities, and sometimes kids, there are kids that I've connected with that think I'm the best. And then there's other kids that probably don't even remember me or are just like, she was annoying, So there's the whole range, and we're all just people.
Mm-hmm. And
so a classroom is just that. It's a lot of personalities, and a lot of times kids will love a subject and think that that's the teacher. Like, the kids that love me are the kids that love reading when they come into my room. So they can give me credit for that, but they enjoy the books that we read because they like reading. The kids that struggle with reading or struggle with writing, it's a lot harder to make that connection with them because they're represent the thing that they don't like.
Yeah.
So, they always love the art teacher when they're artists. So they love the band teacher when they play music.
That's a good point.
Everyone loves the PE teacher except the kid that hates sports. They don't like the PE teacher.
Right.
So, yeah, we just have to remember that our kids experience different classrooms, different subjects, different environments very uniquely. And so that's not necessarily who that teacher is. It was that child's experience in that particular class. And my second period class might get along and have a little family vibe going on. And third period, they don't like each other. And they don't like me. And they're grumpy because they want to go to lunch. And so, like, there's just so many factors. And so as a parent, you just have to trust that the teacher is doing what they can. And as a teacher, we trust that parents are doing what they can.
Wow. Yes.
But the reality is nothing's perfect. It's not going to be perfect anywhere. But we're going to all just do what we can. And kids, our teenagers are going to do what they can. but they're not perfect either. And so you just all have to sort of trust and give a lot of grace and a lot of encouragement and pushing forward. We just keep moving forward every day.
Yeah, that's great, and that's a great wrap up to this whole thing, and that's what I really appreciate about you. You named the different perspectives: perspective of the parent, perspective of the teacher, perspective of the students slash child. And saying how it really all matters, and like even what their feelings are about the subject affects what's happening here. And the fact that you named all those things helps me to trust that, okay, teachers are aware of what's going on here. Like they're not oblivious to like life happening. And so, oh, okay, that helps me to trust you as a teacher and other teachers. Like, oh, okay, I guess they're aware of what's happening. And so
we're real people, and we have kids, and our kids get in trouble at school too. And yeah, we're all just people.
Yeah.
But we're real people, and yeah, you can definitely call or reach out and ask what's going on, because parents are always their best advocate for their student. That is your number one job as a parent, is to be in your kid's corner. But the enemy's not the teacher. The enemy is like the problem, whatever the problem is. And so we can work together on that problem. But we definitely want parents to advocate for their kids, to be that voice for their kids, to support them. But we're an ally, and we're on the same team, and we know it's hard. And we're not gonna say, oh, you should have done this as a parent. Like, I've never heard a teacher ever say that.
And just to bring it back to the beginning of our conversation, yes, we are children's ally, but we don't solve all their problems for them. We can make sure that we're not grooming, but like raising them, preparing them for the future by not doing, especially when they're teens. Like my children, that's what we're initially was talking about. Parents of teenagers who are, the next step is living life on your own. So how do we best prepare them for that? Yes, we are definitely their ally, but we're also coaching, leading, mentoring, teaching, role playing, modeling, like all of these things to try and help them to learn how to be their advocate, but we're like behind them, rooting for them, encouraging them, pointing out ideas, supporting them. We're definitely behind them as things maybe don't work out. Then we're there, or we step in when necessary, but we're definitely allowing them space to sort of move ahead, like versus us doing everything. Now it's sort of shifted where now you're doing more, but I'm coaching you and helping, leading, guiding, because ultimately we want you to be a successful, healthy, well-rounded adult, functioning person. So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think coaching is a great word for it, because the kids are on the field. The coach has got to wait in the dugout. We can prepare them, but I think that's a really great way to look at it. We're coaching. We're not in the game. It's not our game. We didn't win or lose the game. We're just coaching, and the kids are gonna do the best that they can.
And we can be the bad coach that grunt like, you should have did blah 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 blah, and make it horrible for them that they don't want to do it anymore, or they're so set, I gotta do it right, because I don't want to let my coach, I'm doing, so we think, what kind of coach are we? Are we gonna be the supportive, encouraging coach that helps them to love the game and just love what they're doing, and maybe even discover that they're good at some things that they didn't really think that they were good at? Or are we going to be a different kind of coach that's like a traumatic experience, so.
Yeah, we don't want kids to hate the game, we want them to be happy. We want them to be excited about life and becoming adults and their dream jobs and whatever they're going to do in the future. So yeah, we want to be as positive as possible and encouraging, and even the bad news bears, right? They always have something they did right. You make a play. You might have lost the game, but you made a play, or you did the thing. You got the hit. So yeah, focusing on the positive, because kids do a lot of things wrong. They really do, and we do a lot of things wrong. We drop the ball. We make mistakes all the time. But there's always something good that we can build on. So yeah, if anyone's ever coached, I use sports as the analogy for life all the time. but it's the same thing. No matter where you're at, you start building the skills, building the foundation, the fundamentals, and then you have fun.
You let them play.
They don't win all. Yeah, you let them play. They don't always win, but you got to let them play, and that's how they get better, and that's how they learn, and that's how they grow. So, yeah, I think kids are great. I love being around kids. I love talking to teenagers. They're incredibly insightful. Particularly this generation is very aware of what's going on in the world.
And they want to see change. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so encouraged by what I see, the compassion that I see in kids, their awareness of social injustice, their inclusion of people who are different. I'm just really encouraged by kids, and they're clever. They make bad choices sometimes, but they're very smart and they're very clever, and they're passionate, I think, and I'm excited for this next generation. I really am. So I hope parents are excited too, because they're raising really cool little people, and they're going to be really cool adults when they're ready. They're not ready yet. They're not done yet. I tell that to my spouse now with our teenagers. I'm like, if they were allowed to live on their own, we'd let them, but it's illegal because they're not ready yet. Because we know they can't make the choices. That's why we can't kick them out. So we know they're not done yet, but they're going to be great. And I know that, and I want kids to know that. Like, when you get there, you're going to be so ready for it. Because we're going to help get them ready. When it comes to the championship game, like, they're going to be ready. Even though it might be the first day of the season right now. We know that. So yeah, you got to keep perspective. And at the end of the day, most things really don't matter that much. That particular math test, it doesn't actually matter. It matters that we're building our kids. Wherever they're at, we just build them to the next step. So that's what I try and do with my students. No matter if they're the best reader in the world or the most struggling reader in the classroom, we just want to build them to the next step, whatever the next step is. And so parents are great because they know their kids better than anybody. You don't have to know them perfectly, but you still know them better than anybody as a parent. And so parents are so valuable when it comes to education and working with teenagers, because they've been there for the whole ride. They know that student better than anybody else. So parents are a great advocate and a great partner. And yeah, and then all the other adults are on the team. You've got youth group pastors and coaches and scout leaders. There's a lot of adults that do kind of pour into our children. And I'm so thankful for all the people. Like, I can't take credit for all the things that my kids are doing, because I know I was not there for a lot of that. They had great teachers, they had great coaches, they had great pastors, they had scout leaders, they had all these people. They had grandparents and extended family and neighbors and the military community, friends that are like family. So they have all these people that pour into them. And so I'm thankful for that. And I think we also, as a society, have to be really careful what we say about kids. And I think that was one thing I did want to mention. When we post things online and we talk about kids these days, it's not just an adult conversation that you might have had over coffee. Like, it's now publicly on the internet and on social media. And so kids see it and they really take it to heart. So we have to be really careful when we talk about, millennials or kids, or, anything like that, memes, because when grandma posts a meme that's negative to, millennials, they see that, they see what people say about them. So we have to be really mindful and make sure that we're being encouraging to them and talking positively about them, because they're listening and they hear us. They might not tell us at the time, but they hear us and they're listening.
Yeah. That's a good word in warning, to take note of what we're doing.
But they're cool. Kids are cool. Don't be afraid of teenagers. They're just, it's been my favorite phase of parenting. They're a really fun age group.
Yeah.
Better than toddlers, for sure.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Thank you, Stacie. Thank you for your time today and sharing your experience as both teacher for over 21 years and as mom, and as you were naming all the different positive role models that were in your children's lives growing up, I just want to emphasize that they have a wonderful mother, you know, um, one who listens and encourages them. And I know, like, all the things you named sounded real positive, like everything's going right in your life, and like, look at all it. But I know, like that, you're choosing to remember the good that has happened, but that does not mean that there was only good happening.
Absolutely.
There were difficulties in your life, and yet you still remain positive and hopeful and encouraging and still willing to share, with others your experiences, because you're going through it. You recognize that others are just trying the best they can, and just like you offer that. And that is beautiful. And so I just want to point out, like, you are definitely, your mom was right when she said you were chosen to be their parent. Like that's true. And not only have you blessed those two, but so many others and me today by meeting and sharing thoughts with me. And sometimes over social media over the years, at key times. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, and I'm so happy to share what I've learned through trial and error, and I hope it can help other people kind of pay it forward. And I think we all have an individual journey and things we've learned along the way, and so I hope people are willing to share, because I think we all know things and we've learned things, and you have incredible wisdom that you share as well. So I'm so glad to see you in a role where you have a platform to share that. So I'm really excited to see your journey and see all the things you're doing as well.
Thanks, Stacie. So this video will be posted on sojanashines.com and on my social media, and I might write a blog with it to highlight some of the things that we talked about, because this is a pretty long interview, and I don't want people to miss it. Like, I know it's long, but there's a lot in here to consider as we continue to parent, or as we continue to support teachers that are among us, or people who are being those trusted adults that others can go to for support and for help, because not everything is great. And like you said, there's a lot going on in the world, and there are people though that we can go to, and we're definitely not alone in this. And so I hope that this has sparked some thoughts, some encouraging thoughts about our role in whatever role that we're in, and how we can be a help or an encouragement to others, looking for positive ways to sort of see the best in the other and come alongside others in what they're doing, and in the lives of people that are that they're mentoring or raising or whatever it is. So yeah, we're definitely connected, and we're definitely struggling together, but we definitely can encourage one another. We can choose to share our experiences with one another and inspire one another to to continue to maybe have the conversation, to maybe sort of reach out and sort of get to the bottom of things and reconnect. So a lot of things that you've shared today, that we've shared in this conversation, has really encouraged me as a parent, and in what I'm doing, and just trying to highlight people and stories of who are like making a difference in their spheres. And you certainly are doing that. I didn't realize how much, but I knew from that personal note that you sent me at that time that I needed to hear it. I knew that you were willing to share your life, and that you have wisdom from lived experience, and that you offer it to others who are willing to listen or asking for help. Like, thank you. Thank you.
Oh, you're most welcome. And yeah, I think we don't have to be perfect to encourage others, and we don't have to have all the answers in order to share some wisdom. So yeah, we all have knowledge and experiences that we can share. Even if we did it wrong, we can learn from that and help other people. So I think that's really important, that you don't have to have everything perfect in your life before you can help someone else. You can just fully admit, like, hey, I got this wrong, but here's what I learned along the way. So yeah, everybody has a story to tell, and that's why I love language arts and literature, because human experience is so fascinating. Oh, I love it. I love reading stories about fascinating characters, autobiographies, because we all have a story, and it's a journey, and there's ups and downs, but we can share that and learn from that. It doesn't have to be perfect, because no one is. So yeah.
Wow, I just love this conversation. I'm so glad that you said yes to this experience, to be recorded as we talk about this. I knew you had many nuggets to share. I'm so thankful. Thank you. I hope many are blessed by this conversation.
This was my very first recorded interview.
Really? Wow.
Yes. But a very fun experience. So I'm really glad that I said yes, even though I wasn't quite sure
how it's gonna go. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for being willing, taking that risk, and
absolutely.
And I hope you have it. What time is it there?
4:00.
4:00 in the evening. Okay. Yeah, because it's 9 a.m. here. So wow. Again, from Germany to the United States, this is Stacie and Sejana having a conversation about life. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Technology is amazing. I'm so glad that we're able to do this.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to let you enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll work on this and hopefully put it out to the world soon.
Cool. It's been really fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. Bye.
Bye.
All right.